Let's welcome our first speaker of today, professor in charge of European Affairs at Sciences Po, Paris, Professor Henri Malosse. Good morning, Professor.
Bonjour.
Professor, I introduced you in Romanian for our Romanian speakers.
Yes, I understood Romanian perfectly.
Good. So not only this former position of president of the European Economic and Social Committee is important to be mentioned here, but you are also chairman and founder of the French Lobbying Association of the European Union, and also a writer of bestsellers about EU funds. So my opinion as a journalist is that before any presentation you might have prepared, please tell our participants a few words about the opportunity to access European funds, because most of them during the first 3 days of this contest have asked us about the possibility to become entrepreneurs, not only to be programmers. Just a few words.
Yes, my books, my guide about the European Fund, I wrote them a long time ago. So I don't want to create fake hopes among the participants in your country, such as other countries. There is one thing, it's that that's of course the European Union provides a lot of funding for all kind of ideas and projects. But the main difficulty is to get access to these funds because you have a lot of consultants. I'm not a consultant, thanks God. And a lot of consultants will tell you that this is very complicated, come to me and I will take half of your money for me and you will have half for others, and they will charge you extra cost. So my short message on that will be this is fake news. The European Union funds, you can access them. There are just two ways. Or you go to your regional or national administration, because for 75% of the EU funds, they are not managed directly from Brussels. They are under the responsibility of national and local authorities. And this is the national and local authorities who are responsible of that part. So that's one point. So don't lose your time to go to Brussels and to pay very expensive consultants. The second message is there is, of course, some direct EU funding, but this is for the excellence. This is for the, I would say, research institutes. This is for the highest technology. This is for sometimes some other kind of project, like in the cultural media, in the cultural activities, movies, theaters, from European perspective. But this requires excellence in terms of innovation, and excellence in the fact that you should have a European project. That means you should have European partners, you should have a real European dimension. So to be short, or you have a local project, you are local entrepreneurs, you want to develop your company or to extend your company, you want to have some incentives, go to your local or go to your national authorities. They will have a solution, and part of the solution, the money can come from the European Union. But for you, it's even not anything important that you got the funding. But if you have some excellent project with a European partner, if your company is already exists, but you want to scale it up, you want to go to European and international markets, if your innovation, you have to work on your process with some other scientists from other European Union countries, then you can go to the European project and go directly to your Chamber of Commerce, to your European Enterprise Network. They are everywhere. There are some in Romanian, and then you can find the way to get some funding. But please don't waste your money to give your money to useless consultants. That will be my message.
Excellent, Professor. Thank you very much for these advices. I think they're really welcome by our young participants and also by the people who will have a look on our website even after the contest. So you are also an experienced speaker and strategic advisor on the EU for East Europe issues, EU mechanisms and funds, regional policy, European institutions, and even EU trade policy. So I'm really keen to listen what you have to say on the topic of today, human face of digitization, because this is top of the subjects of interest in nowadays topics of IT specialist or future specialist. So you have the floor, Professor, for human face of digitization.
Thank you very much. So we see we are human face. You have not a robot. You have a human speaking to you and participants. I will just start to say that as you could see my human face, you could recognize that I'm not born last year, but I have, I would just say, experience. And I belong to that generation, as some of you, I suppose, who has grown outside of a digital area. Because when we were kids, we didn't know what was the digital area. We just had, I would say, the TV and that's it, and phone. And then we had to experiment during our life, during our professional life, during our adult life, when the digital area has started. And we have passed all these various transition, but now for the young generation, they are all familiar too, but we haven't been familiar. So we have, I would say, particular experience, but we were not born in that digital area, but we are obliged now to live with that digital area. I would say personally that I'm not at all fascinated by these digital tools and digital area. I understand that people can be fascinated by that because they have some, I would say, miracle. There's some mystery, there's some wonder that everything is working so good that, for example, I can't speak to you now that I'm in my small house in Corsica. I look at you and I look on the right side. If I turn my head, I see the Mediterranean Sea. So this digital area has something amazing. But in the same time, and this is what I would like to explain to you in some minutes, we have, of course, to be careful and to see the limits and to understand how we can cope with that digital area without becoming prisoner for that, without becoming ourselves just a subject, an object of a digital area. And for me, I will come back to my conclusion after that. But I think we should remain on control on that digital area. And I see that sometimes we lose control. Myself, we lose control. We become overwhelmed by this digital area, and we lose our freedom. We lose our idea of critic, or liberty, or sense of critic. And this is important to keep, I would say, our feet on the ground and to see this digital area as a tool, as an asset to be more effective, but we should not become prisoner of this efficiency. I would just say, you mentioned that I've been a member of an European institution. It's the European Economic and Social Committee. It's the fifth institution of the European Union. And I was the president for a short time, because we have a short-term mandate as president of that institution, almost 10 years ago, later less. This institution is part of the EU bodies, and he has the particularity you mentioned, the social partners. It's not just the social partners, it's the social partners and the civil society. And I had the pleasure when I was president to visit Romania. I met, for example, your president, the same when I met him. I think it was 2015, so it's the same as it is presently. I met your government, and I met in the same time the social partners, employers, trade unions, and civil society organizations. So I know quite well the Romanian society, because as I mentioned, as you mentioned, so I have quite good experience with Eastern and Central Europe. I have a lot of friends there, and I've learned a lot from you. And I know, for example, that concerning digital area, I'm not here to give you compliments, but Romanian startup, Romanian entrepreneurs are considered that one of the most advanced in Europe, probably because you had to overcome such a quick transition from the communist regime to the new area. In the same time, came the digitalization. So maybe it was easier for you. But anyway, you have a lot of, I know some Romanian friends who are really excellent in digital area and in new technology. So just coming back to the European Economic and Social Committee, I'm coming myself from the employer side, but I learned a lot during my years, my various mandates, of course, my mandate as president, about the concern of all parts of the society. I just mentioned that, of course, we should be aware that the digital area is for the time not for everybody. That means we should keep in mind that you have a part of population, a large part. It's difficult to evaluate because it depends on various levels, but a large part of the population who has big problems with the digital area because they don't have access, they don't have the knowledge, not just question of age, question of where they are born, a question of look at the Roma communities. You have some part of Roma communities who are very familiar with the digital area and some are not. So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to consider what one of the goals of public policy for the digital area will be to give the tools to everybody, to invest in education, in training. And I remember I visited in some countries of Eastern and Central Europe, a lot of initiatives made by local authorities to give access to the digital area, for example, to all generation by training session free of charge, by all these kind of things, because I think the success of the digital area depends also of the capacity of a big part of the population to get access in, to get familiar in. And this will be also, for example, in a company. If you want your staff to use the digital area, you have to invest in training, in education. So these things I will like because it's important, but people keep that in mind. But there's a lot of people, even young people, who don't have access to that for various reasons: lack of education, lack of wealth, lack of even financial capacity to get access to the tools. And we should never forget that, and not become arrogant and think that we have these capacities and everybody has that. That's not true. We should always take care, always check that the people have the capacity, have the ability to be part of the digital area. The second element, I'm here invited by the European Academy of the Region, which is shared by a famous Romanian activist who is in Brussels for long years, Nelu Neascu, and was created this beautiful Academy of the Region. And I'm very proud to be a honorary member of that academy. And this academy is gathering people from various regions of all Europe for training sessions, supporting initiatives like this initiative. But that means, and this is my link, this is my second point, but there is also a question of cohesion policy, because in some areas of the European Union, for example, where I'm here in a beautiful island, French beautiful island, Corsica, which has a particular identity. Just in front of Italy, I can see Italy from my terrace. But we have, I will say, 10 to 20% of our island is not covered by digital, by possibility to get access to internet. So that means that when you are in some part of or island, you can't access to internet, you can't access to WhatsApp, you can't access to Facebook, to whatever. So that's the reality. We still have in Europe some, we say, blank place, white place, without any connection, and this should be also a concern for all people who are working in digital area. So this was my first point with this question of access, depending from your situation and depending from your localization, where you are. You mentioned also, I can't remember, but I'm also chairman today, president of Association Foundation of Jean Monnet. You know, Jean Monnet was one of the father of the European Union, of European construction. We'll celebrate in some days, the 9th of May, the Day of Europe. The Day of Europe, we celebrate the declaration of the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, Robert Schuman, 9th of May 1950, who has set up the basis, the essence of a European constitution that we know today. It was the first construction, first element, piece of paper, piece of speech, who organized the European Union as it is today. This declaration was written by Jean Monnet, was I would say the inspirator, the creator of the European Union. So I'm very proud to be the president of that foundation. Was created by friends of Jean Monnet, by his staff, by his family. And when I was thinking of my speech today, I just read yesterday some part of his memory. And he died in 79, but he already saw this development of this new technology. And I will say that one of his words when he says about the new technology, that he say we will in the future have to consider as a priority the fight to gain autonomy from all this new technology. And I would say to gain autonomy from this digital disaster and from this from the invasion and from the invasive technology. What he means, what I could mean, talking about digital area, digital disorder. It means that our life is becoming, I could say, overwhelmed by the digital area, and we see that it creates, and I just speak kind of sociologic approach, but it creates some really uneasy and unacceptable situation where the person, the human being, becoming prisoner of a digital area and forget about the essence of life. And this is the danger of digital area, making the humans non-humans. I just give you one very simple example. You notice probably, I remember when I was much younger, I was traveling by train all over Europe, and I remember arriving in Bucharest at the end of the 70s, I think, or maybe even beginning of the 70s, taking a train from Belgrade to Bucharest. Took a long time, took hours. At that time, we didn't need any visa to go to Romania from French citizen. And I remember that I met during this trip, this journey from Belgrade to Bucharest, probably 20 or 25 persons. We exchange address. Of course, among them there were some nice girls from Serbia, from Yugoslavia, or from Romania. That was very pleasant. If you take the same journey today, I don't know if there's still some train. Maybe there are, but probably they are as slow as they were 40 years ago. But anyway, you won't be in touch with so much people because everybody will be on his iPhone, sending message to friends, I don't know, in Japan or in Australia, but not looking at the person in front of you. So that's the reality of that digital area who I will say stop us to have human reaction. Human reaction when you are in front of someone, you want to, except if you are worried about something, but normally want to talk, want to exchange. So you don't exchange anymore. We forgot also, and I would say it's another problem of a digital area. I noticed with the young generation, because I'm, as you mentioned, on the screen that I'm teacher by Sciences Po in Paris. We notice also that it's so easy now for each of us. I'm doing that myself, not saying that I'm different from the others. But you stop, and I see with young students, the biggest problem is that they stop to get really knowledge of it because it's so easy when you have a question and you want to know. I don't know who was the French emperor born in Corsica. You will just Google it. You should know that it's of course Napoleon, but now the young generation, their first reaction will not just to come back to their brain and to say, of course, I knew that it's Napoleon. They will just Google Corsica, French emperor, they find Napoleon. And the more and more we go, more and more I see students, more and more I see that they become more and more, I will say, not lazy, in the sense lazy, it's not so it's a bad word, it's not question to be lazy, but it's so easy to find the information in your Google, in the digital tools, than to have to think yourself, than to take a book, than to read. And this makes, I will say, the young people, the young generation, being much more vulnerable. Why much more vulnerable? You could say they got the knowledge because they can find the knowledge. Yes, but they got the knowledge just when they are asked. But globally, they don't have the knowledge, so they can be much easier be manipulated. They don't have the capacity. It's not just because one day, if everything stops, when the internet stops, when they are in a place where there is no internet, they are totally lost. It's not just that. It's also because they lose the global comparison of everything. You should have a global vision as we had about the history of humankind, global vision about our society. And if you don't have that, if you just have piece by piece by checking things, you forgot this global vision. The same thing as, for example, your orientation. You have to develop your sense of orientation, as we developed during thousands of years since the humankind exists, because we have to know where I can find water, where I can find something to eat, where I can find my way to come back home. Now you will Google Map for everything, but if you don't have any Google Map, you will be lost. But also that means you lost also the sense of geographics. You lost the sense of your localization. So you see, all these elements are making you, as we say, very vulnerable, very dependent on that digital area, and you lose control. You see, sometimes when I myself check on my iPhone, I see how many hours I spend on my iPhone or on the digital, and it's growing because you have I would say a lot of requests, a lot of demands, become 2, 3, 4 hours per day, and all the hours that you don't spend to think, and you don't spend to read, and you don't spend to see your friends. So you see the danger. I don't want to exaggerate that, but I wanted just to give you some example and to see that we should all, and I make myself as in Sciences Politiques, we had a special training made for all the professors by the director of Sciences Po to make us to get us some autonomy, some freedom from these digital tools, and for example to stop to use Google Maps, to try to have again our own orientation system, to stop to use Google when we have to find something, to try really to take the time to think, because we have all the knowledge which come back, specifically on my age. It's sometimes not so easy, but not to use the easiest way is to look at Google. To limit the time we use all these tools and all these Twitter, Facebook, and other, to reduce that time, to have as we say, digital-free weekends, digital-free days, digital-free holidays, and I think this is very important. Of course, I know that when you work in a company, it's something totally different. When you work in a company, I myself, I will encourage you and encourage the company to go to the digital area, to present their activities on the digital area. It's something different. It's just a tool. It's a tool to access to your customers, to access to the global consumers, to access to the global market. But for a company, starter, for as we say, digitalization, it's a way to promote your activities. It's a way to be more efficient. It's a way to, as we say, have more capacity, more ability to develop your company, to have a nice website. For example, in my Jean Monnet Association, we have just finished the development of a new website. So it's part of the civil society activities is also to be able to present where people get access easily to all information. This is something totally different. I'm not telling you that companies should get rid of digitalization, but just to tell you something, as I've been an entrepreneur and I work with entrepreneurs, keep in mind also, even you as entrepreneur, the limit of digitalization. Keep in mind that some areas people don't have access. Keep in mind that for some people it's not easy to access. First, when you create these tools, think about how to make them as easy as possible, as human friendly possible. And sometimes we forgot about that. But I think also that some people will have difficulty to get access. So do not concentrate all your way of promotion through the digitalization, because then you know that you won't get in contact with part of the customers, part of the population. But of course, digitalization creates a lot of opportunity for the business. This is true. I will just finish by one other point, coming back to the more sociological, political aspect of this human face of digitalization. That is probably the most worrying. There's not just question of losing your human capacities, your human talents, your human abilities to understand the world, which where the digital area should help you, but not. And today it's growing. It's as I say, it doesn't help you. It reduces your ability. It could reduce your ability if you don't keep control and maintain your autonomy. But my other worry, my other concern is about the content. The content of because the digital by the digital area, you are on that way using information, data, who comes from somewhere else. Um, you know, where the GAFAs, Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, and others, Amazon and others, mainly US companies. A company is a kind of institution. This technology, this digital information provider, they have their own political priorities. In the same time that you use the information of Google, in the same time that you use Twitter, Facebook, and so on. Of course, you put your own content, but you will be overwhelmed by some kind of, of ideological, how to say, globalized kind of content who may be against your own tradition, your own values, your own language. You see, we all speak today English, so we will maybe one day forget to speak our own mother language. We will be a disaster for all the elements, all the history, all our heritage. Our heritage may be in danger. So the danger also of digitalization is the fact that today, in 2022, 80% of the content of all this digital or concerning the information provider come just from one source. This is why I'm fighting with a lot of other friends, with European Academy Region, with other Jean Monnet Association and other. We're fighting to create, I would say, European network, European companies, European digital area, which will bring European content with all the diversity of European language, the diversity of European culture, the diversity of European heritage. Because if not, we will lose our own roots. And I'm proud of my European roots. I'm proud of my Christian, Corsican, French, European roots. I don't want them to be, I would say, melt in a kind of global melting pot coming from the US or from, I don't know, one day maybe from China. I don't want that. I want to keep my own identity. And my own identity, the question of identity, is very important linked with the digital area. It's why we have to support, we have to promote European content, European information provider, European network, to give you European information. Not just that the others are bad, but the others have a political orientation which maybe we don't like, which maybe is not ours, and it's against our own identity. This is what I want to tell you, and I want just to finish to say that you know, there is because you're in Romania, you're not so okay. It's another country, but I always remember a famous book of a Czech writer whose name is Karel Čapek, who wrote that book in the 30s, so it was very old, very old, 1930s, about the robots. And it's the persons, the writer who invents even that term robot, robot means work, that came from the Czech language, from a Slavic language. And in that book is the story of the robot, the automat, replacing the human and becoming I would say the master of the world. And in that period, this book had a lot of success, but it was a political book because it was written in the 30s, at the time of the rise of fascism, of the Nazism. and it was seen as the fight of the humans against this robot was seen as the fight of the humans against totalitarianism, against a society of I would say inhuman faith. And I would say I'm nothing against the automats. I saw that in your film at the beginning of a conference. I think when they are, of course, under control, normally if they are under control, they can help for a lot of tasks. Of course, we have to keep in mind that the human resource should be also used, but should be used maybe just to control them. Okay, that's not a problem for me. But the main problem for me coming back with that book is that in fact we may becoming ourselves robots. We may becoming ourselves by an excessive use of all the digital tools, ourselves robots just spending all our time on our iPhone, on our laptop, on the digital tools, just for any question, looking at Google or some other tool to find the answer, to not be able to find the answer ourselves, not able to know where we are, who we are, what is our roots, what is our tradition, what is our heritage, and this is the main threat. So my just final appeal is that digital area is great if we keep the autonomy towards that digital area, if we are able to take control on that and not to be controlled by the digital area. Thank you very much for your attention. Mulțumesc.
Professor, please don't rush to end our encounter. Two more questions and answers. They were bringing attention to the digital illiterates. Of course, we encourage all of them to get acquainted with information technology. But as you mentioned, time spent on phone is growing, and youngsters have a preference to talk each other through the online medium. It's complicated to say when we should stop with that and go in real world, as the gamers say. Yeah, they always put, I'm going to RL, real world. So they keep in mind that the real world is different from the online world. Two realms. What would be your advice as a professor in Sciences Po? Also, let's tell our participants that Sciences Po is the Paris Institute of Political Studies, but well known, referred as Sciences Po Paris. A wonderful establishment for education situated in Paris. We had it on the screen. How do you offer advice to your students and everybody around the world how to put boundaries between the online presence and physical presence, not to forget that we're human beings, social beings?
You know, when I'm okay as a teacher in Sciences Po, but I'm teaching in other universities. Lastly, we come to the end of university year, so we have it's the time of exams. And when you ask for students to present some work, you can really see the difference. And I always tell that to my students, and our colleagues do the same. You can really see the difference when you have someone who has a global comparison of a question and someone who has just checked on internet, on Google or others, piece of information and try to put them together. It's totally different because on one side you have a global comparison of a question, and on the other side you have just piece of element who may be contradictory and who come without any comprehension. And you see the difference, but I know that intelligence, artificial IA is considered that maybe be more efficient than the human one. I don't know, but I really can see the difference, and I can really see that the person who has his own reflection, his own, because you will never have the sophistication of a human brain to have a global comprehension of a problem, even with the most sophisticated artificial intelligence. And with artificial intelligence, of course, you can have, if you get access to the most sophisticated tools, you can have some sophisticated answer. But it, when you start a discussion, when you present work, when you discuss, when you have a discussion with someone on TV and everything, uh, you don't have the time to check with the most sophisticated, as they say, artificial intelligence. And when you switch. I don't know if you understand me, but you, when you present your work, the professor would give you another question, another question. For these complementary questions, the artificial intelligence, you can't use it anymore because you're in face of someone. So when you lose your capacity, and when you see that you are totally lost. If you have used the digital just to get some information, and then from this information you have made your own piece of work, it's totally different. You can of course use digital information just to get access to some point, but your own reflection, your own point will have a global view, will have a global coherence, will be coherent, will have a global coherence. And if you don't, if you use just piece of work, piece of information, of data information, without taking time for your own reflection, you will see that immediately. So I always tell to my students, if you want to be efficient, if you want to be successful, for example, in political science, good prepare people to be manager, to chair meetings, to be able to speak on the TV like you are doing, to be moderator, to be maybe politician. Uh, One day, artificial intelligence won't be enough, and you will be stuck, and you will not be efficient. So if you want to have efficiency, just keep in mind that keep your own reflection and limit the use of digital to just collecting data. It's okay, but then you should also have in mind what I was just saying. That try to find different kind of data, not just one. Try to have contradictory data. Try to have to not to follow the mainstream information, which is very often not correct. Try to have a balance, and then have your own reflection. So I don't know if it's a good answer, but this is the way we try to explain to our students that they should make the effort for their own reflection.
Professor, the second and the last questions of our today presentation. You are also honorary member of the European Academy of Regions in Brussels. This entity is known by the landscape of specialists in different areas of expertise, but less by the IT experts in Romania, because I can say that because I'm a journalist, a science journalist for 30 years now, and of course I meet them every day. So they are not well aware of the opportunities arising from being in contact with such entities. Please tell us in the end of your presentation a few words about this European wonderful entity.
No, I think the interest of European Academy of a Region, not just because I'm so have the honor to be honorary member of that beautiful installation created by a Romanian person who is Nelu Neascu. I was a great person, great figure, very known in Brussels. Is but the fact that this is a very pragmatic organization which has, how to say, a unique network all along Europe, a network of experts, a network of professors by university, a network of with some companies, with people with a lot of experience in all the European countries. So whatever you want to organize somewhere, event, meeting, project, the European Academy of the region, you find you the right expert in various European regions. I mentioned your first question, Mr. Grosso. Your first question was about youth fund. As I mentioned, for the exceptional project with innovation, the project with a European dimension, the requirement from the EU is to have European partners. And through the European Academy of the Region, you will find immediately some, how to say, not seconds, not to exaggerate, but some days, the right and the best experts, the right and the best academics, the right and the best universities, high schools, enterprise companies sometimes, research center to participate to your project. So it's really the best tool to access expertise, competence, and knowledge all along Europe.